Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for being with us today. After having welcomed almost 9,000 participants that have joined us from all over the world, we're truly happy to welcome you back on board for our third season and very first episode of our AI Spotlight Series, focusing on how artificial intelligence is impacting and augmenting financial services from the banking and wealth management industry to the insurance sector. Welcoming you today on Banking Rewired. A little bit of fantastic speakers background. Mr. Nitin Purwar is currently leading UiPath's banking and capital markets intelligent automation solutions, enabling UiPath's banking clients and automate their operations using multiple levers, RPA and ML-based capabilities. He's a robotics process automation and machine learning technology specialist. Nitin was assistant vice president at HSBC and associate at GP Morgan Chase. He's joining from Bangalore, India. Fantastic to have you with us, Nitin. Miss Maria Mihes is automation technology manager and part of the UiPath Immersion Lab leadership team, where she helps customers to explore, quote, the art of the possibilities in intelligent automation. She holds a degree from King's College and has founded the Romanian Sports Institute in Bucharest. If that isn't unique, I don't know what else to say. Mr. Pranay Jain is a serial entrepreneur, CEO, and co-founder of the Enterprise Bot, a system that communicates in natural language and understands users' requirements, powering the future in hyper automation with AI, back chats, and email bots. The firm improves customer experience and reduces operational costs by up to 40%. Pranay is joining us from Zug, Switzerland. Welcome on board. Mr. Danny Kaltenborn, General Manager at Emerald Rating, a robo-advisor that combines Swiss financial excellence, state-of-the-art credit rating methodology, and decades of B2B experience. He's also the author of the Code of Best Practice that went on to be recognized as the #1 book and resource in credit rating across Switzerland. And Danny's also the president of the Association of Credit Management in Switzerland since 2011. Danny is joining us from Zug, Switzerland as well. On the moderator side, we have Anke, who's a manager in the analytics and cognitive department. She works on projects closely related to artificial intelligence and machine learning. This includes practical application of different techniques like image recognition, natural language processing, and others. Anke has published academic articles in journals on big data related to topics. She's involved in writing frequent thought leadership articles on AI and advanced analytics for the Deloitte Inside Now publication. And she has also spoken at international conferences in the US, China, Norway, and is a facilitator at Deloitte Luxembourg AI Villages. Ladies and gentlemen, the screens is yours.
Well, thank you so much for that really energetic introduction. I would say it's really an honor to be here today. And the topic of the panel discussion is very, very interesting. So it is absolutely no secret that artificial intelligence is at the center of banking innovation. So I'm thinking of developments such as robo-advisors, video KYC processes, increased fraud detection, or algorithmic trading, just to mention a few. Today, with the boundaries between the physical and the digital world disappearing quite quickly, we are not only reimagining the way that we work, but also seeing dramatic changes in the industry. And this is what our panel will focus on today. So I would really warmly like to welcome our 4 panelist speakers today, and also would like to thank the audience for taking your precious time to join us and listen to the interesting discussions. So without wasting more time, Maria, my first question will be for you. In the Deloitte 2020 State of AI in the Enterprise survey, over 60% of respondents mentioned that AI is substantially changing and transforming their industry. So how do you believe RPA is substantially transforming the banking industry currently?
Thank you, Anke, for your question. And thank you, Anthony, for the very lively introduction for today. Well, firstly, I want to share some clarity on what RPA is. Maybe not everyone knows that's on our kind of meeting today knows what RPA is. So I'll spend 1 second talking, giving the background on it. So RPA means Robotic Process Automation, which basically is a software. We call them software robots, but they're basically a software that is deployed on existing systems. It is industry agnostic, but one of the most important and let's say the industry that is the most involved in this, it is banking, BFSI, so on and so forth. So this software robots sit on your existing systems and they emulate repetitive tasks. They emulate human activity on these particular systems and they automate repetitive tasks. So just by saying that, I think from the onset, it's a clear thing that all these robots do, they follow a certain map, they follow certain steps. So that means they won't make mistakes, which are by definition, I guess, human mistakes. They don't get coffee breaks, they don't go on like vacations, they don't get sick, so on and so forth. So just by looking at that, you see the transformation it translates into for banking, in the sense that first of all, it helps in eliminating repetitive tasks, right? So that provides some opportunities for cost cutting, for streamlining processes, especially in legacy systems, in older systems that, as we know, banks are pretty much full of. Secondly, if we look at compliance, we're looking at eliminating errors, we're looking at ensuring regulatory measures are met. Thirdly, we're looking at customer service. Obviously, with more automation, you create a better customer experience. So you decrease turnaround times, you make it easier for customers to access customer service. You enable the agents to have, predictive analytics on what the customers could be looking at next, like helping them upsell. And thirdly, when you're looking at employee experience, which is a great topic now, and a lot of banks are looking at keeping their employees with them for a longer time they spend a lot of money in training the employees, so on and so forth. You're looking at offering employees a better experience. You get rid of these repetitive tasks. And obviously, in terms of cost cutting, you reduce attrition, you reduce training costs, especially. And just a bit of from my personal view, I've been working in RPA for the past 6 years. So I've seen the industry kind of boom. And when I started working there, banks were the first institutions to start on the journey. And I've seen it grow from having, going into banks and telling them, please, let us do a proof of concept. Let's prove the technology works. You have your first success story, you have your second success story, and that creates a snowball effect. And now it's like very, very popular. So you could see it is transforming the industry. And the one other point I want to make here, it's really not only about RPA anymore, it's about kind of a system of a whole ecosystem of technologies. So consultancies use, like Deloitte use this a lot, and this is a term actually coined by Gartner, called hyperautomation. We like to say full enterprise automation. But really the power of transformation for banks and the power of digital transformation comes from using all of these technologies together, through hyperautomation, through the idea of an ecosystem of technology. So use RPA in the middle of it, but use RPA integrated with, process mining, with BPM tools, with AI, with machine learning, or with chatbots, for example, which we have today. So really that's how you unlock value, and that's how you prove the transformation that the Deloitte study was talking about, through this convergence of technologies that's going to have a big, big impact moving forwards.
Thanks so much for this answer, Maria. I think it's really clear that RPA can do quite a lot in the industry, and not only RPA, but working together with the different technologies that we have at the point of our fingertips. So Nitin, if we zoom into one of the three specific areas that Maria has mentioned, the topic of regulation. So I know this is a key point for financial institutions. If we look at the multitude of regulations out there, let's say BCBS 239, for instance, how would you say RPA can actually help organizations to comply in this ever-changing environment?
Absolutely. I think that's a great question, and that's a great point actually, Anke. Now, when you see it, look at regulations, right? These regulators are really looking to, ensure that these financial services institutions are, following a set governance. They are putting right controls in place. And when you see at the heart of these governance and controls, the most important thing is data aggregation, data monitoring, and reporting to these regulators. So that's what these regulators want to really ensure, that the customer data, the whole customer life cycle data is secure, is not being misused, right? And that's where all the monitoring and reporting aspects come into picture. You took a very good example of BCBS, the Basel rules, the MIFID rules. All of that primarily revolves around reporting, say for different entities, for different businesses, for different products, different customers. Now, if you see banks, right, I mean, obviously, they are really mature. In a lot of cases, banks already have systems in place to aggregate data, to report these things. But then for a lot of banks, there are a lot of legacy systems there, right? Pulling data, aggregating data from those systems, and preparing those reports is not that straightforward. And that is where we are seeing a lot of use of intelligent automation, RPA as such, where we are acting as a bridge between those applications, messaging the data, preparing reports. So I can give you maybe a good example here. So banks obviously are using us for all the regulatory reporting and regulatory functions. There are central banks in Europe who are also using UiPath, right? And a very good example of one of the central banks actually is for MIFID reporting. The central bank obviously received the reports. They were actually running a backlog of almost 9 million, 9 million data points, and they used UiPath for that. So, I mean, central banks are using us, the banks are using us, so you can well understand that we are really covering the regulatory space. So that's one. The second part, and very important part, is that you see these regulations keep on changing. So obviously there was Basel 2, there was Basel 3, MIFID 2, MIFID 3, and then obviously there are regulations which keep on coming. And banks, financial services institutions really need to make sure that their solutions are agile in nature, that they can upgrade these solutions as fast as possible, just to ensure that they are compliant. And then just going back to my central bank example earlier, just to demonstrate how easy and agile it is to implement an intelligent automation solution like ours. It took them just 6 weeks to implement that solution to clear a backlog of 9 million cases. So that's how easy it is. And that's why you will see a lot of banks, a lot of regulators are also choosing us, because of the agility which we bring, and ensuring that the banks are compliant as well.
Thank you so much, Nitin. I think you're touching on a key point, which is agility and staying up to date with what is currently happening and the newest and latest innovations. So I will link this to Danny now, asking a question more related to what you guys do at Emerald Rating. So you are working on scalable credit management. And my question to you is, how is AI contributing to this?
Well, scalable, what does it mean, right? What we want to do, and thank you, Anke, for your question. This is a good one. So what you want to do is to optimize your processes and reducing the cost per use, right? So if you go into the classic processes, you name it, like credit insurance companies and all that stuff, they have let's say an army of analysts who have to go through the things manually to analyze if one of your customers is credit worthy, right? What is the credit limit I can grant to them, right? You want to have that answer. In many of those cases, it takes longer time than you have to make your decision, right? In other cases, data is outdated, right? And what you want to have is a system where you bring in your data from your customer, because you have the contact to the customer directly, right? You talk to them. They might tell you, if you sign a secrecy agreement, an NDA, then I give you my financial information and you can analyze it. Now, you might come to the point that you don't have the knowledge, right? Then you go back and you need to hire a credit analyst, right? What if you would have a robot in place that you can feed that information and gives you an answer, making this data into meaningful information for you for decision making. And if you even can convince your customer to go, which is the procurement guy most probably, to tell his cost accountant to say, hey, can you please enter the data? Then you have a report available which is up to date on newest data that you have and not anyone else, right? And you can make a decision on the spot, on the pulse.
Thank you so much. So I think all of this just links together with the use of technology, and I would like to link the topic now. We've discussed a little bit credit management, we've discussed RPA, and I would like to get to the third focus point, which is quite a hot topic, conversational AI. So Pranay, bringing this point to the table, at Enterprise Bot, I know you have chatbots, also email bots, different types of bots working on conversational AI. In which area do you believe the banking institutions can get the most value from conversational AI?
You know, that's a really good question, because most people inherently think of bots or conversational AI as chatbots, you know, with the bubble at the bottom popping up and saying, hey, how can I help you? But honestly, conversational AI is so much more than that today. We're talking about, for example, email response automation. We're working with the Swiss Stock Exchange, who have more than 200,000 tickets that are just basically coming through email, while their chat, volumes are much lower. So there's no right answer. It really depends on the particular, let's say, enterprise that needs to deal with it. So voice, of course, is picking up as well. And we clearly see that you're going to kind of have different solutions for different enterprises. If you're B2B, definitely email is a big channel for you. If you're more B2C, then chat and voice are a much bigger channel for you. And really what we recommend and what we try and basically tell enterprises is choose a solution that can scale well, that basically goes completely omni-channel rather than can only service one channel, because you want to leverage those learnings across channels as you keep growing, as you want to be available for your customers 24/7 on multiple channels. So that's at least how we see it, where you're not going to have one choice, rather you're going to try and be available on multiple particular channels, and you just need a technology that can support it throughout.
Thanks so much. I cannot agree more that chatbots are not only the hi or how are you anymore, that there's so many applications for this, which brings me to a question to Danny again. I know you guys have, for instance, robo-advisors. If you think about moving towards a field using conversational AI, what would the specific requirements be that you would recommend companies would look at before starting on this journey?
Good question. So thank you. So yeah, definitely. So what we have to keep in mind, that goes back to my point beforehand, right? So we have to rethink how we shuffle data, right? So data is the most valuable thing what we have today, and the solutions that we have in any kind of robotics is rather to implement logic elements to bring the data in a meaningful way, right? And that is anything comes from communication, that comes into financial area where we are placed in, right? And again, a combination of both. And 3 things or 4 things, this is what makes it meaningful, right? So rethinking the process, combining things, right? And seeing and learning from the past, taking ideas that are new and thinking out of the box, and then you have a winning situation that helps you in whatever process you automate.
Yeah, that's very true. So I would like to discuss a little bit one of the elements that is a key thing to keep in mind, and this is the center of the customer first. So Maria, if we look at the current customer, we know that they are becoming smarter, more tech savvy, and with this, you do see that there is higher requirements for their banking experience and so forth. Do you see this changing customer as a challenge or an opportunity for the industry, and what would your advice be?
Thank you for the question, Anke. I think it's a great discussion point now. And there's a lot of conversations going around improving the customer experience, especially. So I'm an advocate of digital, right? So I see it as an opportunity. If you're a bank that's kind of still based in the past and you want to kind of hold on to the past, then yes, of course, it's going to be a challenge for you. But realistically, this for the industry, for the banking industry, improving customer experience, this is a huge opportunity. And you don't have to look further than, the rise of fintech to have your actual kind of tangible evidence, how people have started using fintech, using applications, banking applications. Like, as you very well said, customers today, well, when I apply for a loan, I expected to have it today, right? I expect to have my money at the click of a button. I expect to have all my accounts. I want to see everything immediately, and I want like information in a second, right? I want everything to be done immediately. And now, especially with the pandemic happening now, I don't want to go into a bank. I don't want to speak even to anyone. I want to have it in a second, pretty much, right? So yes, if digital transformation is hugely important from that perspective for banks, especially when you're looking, banks have very well regulated processes and the processes are very well put in place, really. So the changes you're making on the short term, they're not going to be in terms of, your processes that are regulated, but you have an opportunity that kind of presents itself in improving the customer experience. So that's really where you can make your actions, right? So coming back to the point that every challenge is an opportunity, and the digital adoption is critical, especially for customer experience. On that short term, it may look like there's a train coming towards you, right, at the speed of light. But on the long term, what you're looking at is really better all around processes. You have better insights, you have better tracking, you have all around better experience for the customer, for the employees, who expect benefit from automation as well. So I do think it's an opportunity. I think it's a huge opportunity for banks to improve their processes all around at the same time kind of keeping their customers, especially in the threat of what is the threat from fintech, from banks that are super, super new and very digital. So yes, I think it's a great opportunity. Banks should look into digital transformation, invest in improving their customer experience through the digital.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we cannot really speak about customer experience without also thinking about customer retention, which of course is a key KPI for a lot of institutions. So Pranay, if I can ask you, how do you think conversational AI can impact this KPI of customer retention?
So I think that's a really good point. And when there are surveys about customer retention, one of the major points that comes up is when you had a problem, right? As a customer, when you had a problem, what was the time in which that problem was resolved? And how often was that resolved in the first conversation or the first time that a customer calls? And you can think about yourself, if you call up a bank or if you call up an insurance company or even an airline, what the last thing you want to hear is, your call is really important to us. Please wait online. Our customer service representatives are extremely busy. And I think that's where, AI helps. That's where RPA helps. That's why this entire concept of hyper automation comes in, where what we're saying is, hey, at the end of the day, all a customer wants is his problems resolved. If those are resolved, you can retain your customers, you can grow those accounts, you can increase your customer experience. And that's what you're really looking for. And that's why we're very bullish on this technology. And that's why you're seeing such a big growth over here.
Yeah, no, I think it's very true, and I believe that everything that we've mentioned up until now needs a certain culture from the banking industry, and this leads to the last question for our panel discussion today, which is to Nitin. So to foster this culture of innovation within the industry, we need a shift in the way people think, the shift at the way places are managed, and so forth. Where would you say the industry is currently at to put technology first?
Absolutely. And I think I would say this question couldn't have come at a better time, right? I mean, all of us are living in a COVID era, right? And so obviously, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Banks, I come from a banking background. Banks were really the early adopters, or are even the early adopters when it comes to tech. But during these COVID times, and it was actually an eye opener for me as well, how quickly banks can adapt and how quickly they can adopt technology. I'll give you a couple of good examples, right, which I personally witnessed in these last few months. So one example is from UK. So I mean, all of you would know that UK government came up with a mortgage holiday as part of the relief package for the mortgage consumers, right? So that they can delay their payments because of all the difficulties. Now, if you see, there were banks who were actually surged with volumes of customer requests for taking these reliefs, right? So we had a bank, one of the largest UK banks, who told us that they were receiving 10 times surge in volumes to get the relief, mortgage payment relief, right? And that's where this bank actually asked us, can you help us implement bots who can actually service these customer requests for mortgage relief? And to my surprise, we were able to implement 120 robots in less than a week to take on these requests, right? So that's one example of how one of these UK banks. The second similar example is from US. And as all of you would know, US government came up with a CARES Act, right? And as part of the CARES Act, there was a paycheck protection program, which gave almost 349 billion US dollars, which was supposed to be given to the SME, small and medium business customers. And banks again were tasked to pass on the benefit to these SME customers. There were 30 banks. I mean, and it's not a made up number, actually more than 30 banks who again used UiPath to bolster their SME lending processes. There were banks who, I mean, most of the banks did this in less than 2 weeks time. They used our robots, implemented it in less than 2 weeks. I have an example which is actually a record for UiPath itself, of a bank who implemented the robots in almost a weekend. So that's the kind of speed and pace at which I saw banks adopting technology. So I mean, I'm living in that world where I used to hear that banks are taking years and ages to adopt technology, but now I'm living in a world where I've seen banks implementing things in over a weekend. So I mean, that kind of sums up how fast we are moving and how fast banks are able to adopt technology.
Yeah, I think there's no better way to answer this question than to give concrete examples like this. So thank you very much for that, Nitin. At this point, I want to thank the panel for the very interesting inputs, and I really hope that the audience also enjoyed it as much as I did to discuss about these topics, and that we will dig more deeper into this, of course, during the workshop that will follow. I think we can really conclude that AI has a role to play in the industry, and that AI is already disrupting the industry as we know it. And on this point, I hand over to you, Anthony. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Anka, and thanks to all the participants. So we are going to take a couple of questions from the audience. If I'm not mistaken, Dan, we have a question from Dan Fenney joining us from the UK. Dan, are you there?
A lot of large cross-border banks, insurance, ones that consume a lot of data are going to the platform and the partner ecosystem. But I'm quite concerned about who manages the third-party risk. There are so many fintechs plugging in through APIs and sort of these middleware, back-end, front-end plays. I'm quite concerned that, just having a dashboard for data flowing in and out of an organization is quite not enough. I'll stop there. Thank you.
So I think that's a great point, and honestly, I don't have a right or maybe a very clear answer. The way I have experienced this with banks is, in most cases, banks are owning up their own data, right? In our own experience, banks are really not still very open even to cloud options, right? So they are still opening up a little bit, and those security concerns. And one of the biggest questions we get from our banks is how you can ensure the safety of their data, right? Which is where you will see that vendors like ourselves make sure that we have all those right certifications, we have all the right technologies or security features in place so that the bank's data is secure. So I mean, personally, if you ask me, it's ownership with the bank and also with the vendor. So like UiPath also takes an ownership of the data. We want to also make sure that we are not storing data. So if you see, UiPath doesn't store any data. So we are only managing or channeling the flow of data, but not storing anything, right? So which kind of gives confidence to my customers, banking customers, that, hey, look, my data is safe with us.
Just adding to what Nitin is saying, I completely agree with him. So Dan, as you mentioned, this is a problem or this is a concern area, and I don't think you're the only one who would voice this. Most enterprises that we at Enterprise Bot work is as well, many times want an on-premise option, want the ability to have complete control over that data. And that's something that, when you're an enterprise player, you just have to kind of adopt to and understand the needs of your customers. And I think, as again mentioned by Nitin, it is a shared responsibility. At the end of the day, you as a bank have to take some responsibility, and your security audits do kind of do that with penetration tests, etc. But at the same time, we as fintech providers also take up our share of responsibility, making sure everything is encrypted. Even if, let's say, we are working with your data, it's either on your premise or we have very clear firewalls. So I do believe that we are at a much more advanced stage where we already know as an industry how we have to kind of maintain data. But it's definitely one of those points which, let's say, is not over, and we're going to have to continue, evolving, especially with all the hacks and breaches that are taking place.
Maybe from my end then, so when it comes to Switzerland, right? So this is what I can speak for, right? So if you look at the regulator FINMA, if you talk to them and ask them, okay, well, what do you want to have? How do you want your rules to be in place, right? They touch base on the banks itself or the owner of the data. Let's say banks, insurance companies, can be anything, right, at the market, right? If you come in from a robotics perspective and you do like just the analytics and shuffling into a meaningful information, but don't keep it on your servers, right? The regulator in Switzerland doesn't have a problem at all, right? That's a good point. Whereas what they will do, they will make sure that the clients, the banks, insurance companies, and so on, have audit processes in place that those service providers, those robotic service providers, make sure that they also do what they say, so that they don't keep data. Yeah.
I guess I mean, there's procurement, there's IT, there's risk, there's all these various departments within the large enterprise holding all this data. So who is managing the relationship with all these external third parties? Is it all, can it be procurement, IT, and risk? Does it go up to the executive level? Because I'm not clear.
And I think it's a shared risk, at least what we've seen. Like, actually all three departments do get involved. At least all our experience has never been that, there's just one guy who basically says, perfect, you can install your services tomorrow and we're ready to go. There are all those checks and balances, right from procurement to, basically security. And that's kind of how it's always been. Whether it should continue being that way, especially with more APIs, etc., coming in, that's a good question, and that's definitely open. And I think there are more and more technologies coming in that actually become your gateway providers that actually analyze the data coming in and going out. But of course, that is something that's still emerging and not there yet.
Very, very well. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for taking those questions. So now we're going to start the workshop sessions in about 4 minutes. What I'm suggesting you to do is simply to drop to self-assign yourself. I'm opening the sessions right now. All you need to do is to go to breakout room. You pick either workshop 1 with Enterprise Bot or workshop 2 with UiPath, and you'll be able to self-assign yourself. If you don't have the latest version, please just drop the number of the workshop in the chat forum, and we'll assign you. We have a team that will help you assign yourself, okay? Please go ahead. And we are starting in 3 minutes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. So I think the way we have really planned this workshop, and we wanted to keep it interactive. So I think between Maria and me, we will be quickly. So we have a mix of demonstrations, mix of questions for you as well. Um, I think just to start with, Maria, if you want to quickly start and provide an interview, how we want to make this more interactive.
Yeah, so we'll be using Mentimeter. Let me actually write here on the chat. I don't know how breakout sessions work, to be honest. I'm new at the Zoom breakout session. I think you can see everything. So I'll just write down what we have in the slides though. So if you can go to menti.com, www.menti.com. Can everyone see what I wrote down on the chat? And,
yeah, we can see it.
Okay, brilliant. And then use the code I've provided. We have a couple of questions that we'd like to kind of get answers from everyone on the session. Our request is just to let's go one question at a time. So when we'll start the first question, we'll just ask you to answer for the first question, we'll discuss it, and then we'll take the next one. So if possible, don't go through all of them at once, just let's take them one at a time. So they're basically questions around where you are in your intelligent automation journey, and kind of what you see as the main areas that are going to be coming across as like holding the most interest for you, right? So,
Maria, just 1 second. NK, or I think our co-host from the LHoFT, can we kind of kick off? Because I thought they said we have to wait for like 3-4 minutes for everyone to join. Should we like wait, or should we kick off?
I think we can kick off so long for the 2 unassigned participants. If they join later, we can
Awesome.
catch them up. But I think I've got the green flag to continue, so we can go.
Awesome. Okay, Maria, sorry, back to you.
So then let's kick it off with the first question, which is kind of the basis for our discussions today, asking you where you are. So has everyone gone to menti.com, put in the code, and you'll see this question pop up, and please answer it. Where are you in your automation journey, from not started to using automation at scale? And then we'll take it from there.
And while you guys are logging in, I'm just going to play this quick animation.
I think it's not sharing the sound. You have to share the sound, Nitin, as well.
Oh, 1 second. Sorry about that.
Automation has
Can
been
you hear it now?
embraced by people far and wide. Robots have helped people, unburdening them from dull, repetitive work so they can do the work that's worth doing. This has made people love the robots. And this love of robots has made RPA the fastest growing enterprise technology on Earth. It's also made the people want more robots. But not just any robots. They want smart robots. Robots that can do things like looking through invoices, making sense of sales notes, or reading endless contracts. So they want robots to have smart skills like reading, listening, and even holding a conversation. And they want collaborative robots that can pass tasks back and forth smoothly. So the robots do the routine and the people can handle the exceptions. Robots with a sense of rhythm. They want robots to automate any process possible. But the people need help to figure out which processes to automate and how to do that. So it's AI to the rescue with task mining. And more kinds of people want robots. Non-developer, business-type people want robots. They want robots that are easy peasy to use. Some of them might even make their own. That has to be easy peasy too. And to take advantage of all the good automation ideas of others. The people want a place to post and share their robots. Finally, the people want to be able to prove to Glenn in finance that the robot investment is paying off. So they want to measure the robot's work and provide performance insights, and then generate reports to explain how much money RPA has saved their organization. Glenn is always happy to see a good return on robots investment. the UiPath platform for hyper-automation. It's the world's only comprehensive RPA platform that gives the people what they want, from discovery to measurement and all the wonderful robots in between.
All right. So, Maria, back to you. Do we have the results from the first poll?
Oh, we do. We have an interesting. Should I share the screen or should I just talk?
Just mention the
Yeah.
results.
So basically, most attendants say they have automation. So the question was, where are you in your automation journey? And most attendants say 40% having automated a few journeys.
Awesome. That's
And
great.
the second most common one is not started.
Yes.
So-
Okay. So 60% people we have today have not started. That's
No, no, no.
fine.
It's
Okay.
so 40% have automated a few journeys or are
Okay.
well,
Got it.
60%
Got it.
either automated a few journeys or initial explorations.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Cool. Awesome. So let's move to the next one then, guys, just to maybe understand from you what technologies are most important to you when it comes to automation. So automation is not just RPA, it's all about a mix of technologies. So here's the second one for you.
Do you think here you can select more than one? So-
All right. So I think while everyone is selecting, Maria, over to you.
Yeah, okay. Let me just, I'll show you my screen. Okay, so so basically what I want to talk about, and very, very briefly, so we'll focus on banking afterwards. But coming back to actually what we were discussing with Ankit's questions at the first part of the day, with using RPA, but using more than RPA, so using kind of an entire platform, expanding the scope of automation from automating these repetitive tasks to actually having an enterprise, fully automated enterprise potential. So here at UiPath, we focus on 4 different pillars. So we have the products for this full enterprise automated journey that focus on different pillars. The first one will be, and different personas also, So the first one will be around helping enterprises build and test automations quickly, from the simple to the advanced. So this actually talks to RPA, both RPA and citizen developers. And let me make the difference between RPA developers and citizen developers. So with your RPA developers for the advanced implementations, you're talking about people that already come from technology backgrounds. These are the ones that are going to be able to work in the center of excellences and do implementations that have good governance framework and respect certain principles in place. So the scalable, very large process automations. But we're looking also at enabling business users to become developers. And that's where citizen developers come into play, automating your smaller tasks like sending emails, your out of office message, getting information from 4 different policies, stuff like that, working with tasks rather than processes. And through kind of a citizen developer program, you enable all the organization to be able to start working on their own automations. Then secondly, since I mentioned kind of your center of excellence, is we have the pillar around managing. So managing, deploying, optimizing your automations at scale. And this refers to IT operations, right? So for that, we're talking about products from our suite, like the orchestrator, which is your command center of robots. You can look at insights, which gives you insights. That's what it says on the tin, around what the robots are doing. How do you transform their operations into money signs, if nothing else? So using all of these to get better insights on how well the process is run, and what kind of benefits the organization is seeing, what kind of return on investment it's seeing from automation. I think we move to the next one. Okay. And then in terms of automation users, we're working on ways to engage people and robots as one team for seamless collaboration. So taking a step back, I was mentioning, RPA or automation is software robots. There's two types of software robots. There's the ones that work unattended in a virtual machine and can be scheduled, and these work 24/7, or there's the ones that we call attended that work as your partners. And you will be triggering these from your desktops pretty much, right? So think of them as, also attended, unattended robot can hand over tasks from one to the other. And this is a really, really great advantage, especially for UiPath, the seamless type of working together. So really what we aim to do with this engage pillar is to create a digital workforce. You have people working with robots as their digital assistants. So you have your robots coming into play to help you with your day-to-day activities alongside your back office activities too. And last but not least, we have the pillar around discovering the automation opportunities. So this is more around, enabling business analysts or your process analysts, helping you generate faster, accelerate your generation of pipeline, right? So you're looking at demand generation, at pipeline creation, and find the processes that are most suitable for automation. And for this, we have some products called Automation Hub and Task Capture, which are, I like to call them a citizen BA, pretty much, right? So the idea behind them is to send the efforts of pipeline generations to kind of more of a bottom-down approach as well. So you enable people within the organization to upload their ideas for automation within a central repository, which is Automation Hub. This is what a BA would do from a consulting, for example, but also from kind of a consulting perspective, you can use this to kind of generate your pipeline, generate your line of work, or from a center of excellence perspective, you can do this to kind of, again, fill your backlog with ideas for automations coming from the people that are on the ground. And those people are the people that know the processes the best. And the second great pillar for discovering is around process mining. So process mining works as finding, X-raying pretty much your processes within the business and finding pockets, whether they be, for example, if you're looking at, at invoice processing, for lack of a better example, you run the program for on a team that does the invoice processing, and you find out how many cases follow a certain track. And based on that, you can take certain conclusions, such as, okay, this is something that can be automated, or this is within the process. Forgetting about automation, look at where your bottlenecks in the process are. So if you do it 100 times and it goes through a certain kind of flow, it makes sense. But then maybe there's 20 cases when it jams at, let's say, Jane in London, because Jane in London, apart from her other colleagues, she has a backlog of other stuff, and those invoices never pass her. So it's worth looking at it to kind of improve your process operations. And all of this is governed, let's say, through your center of excellence. So your center of excellence will continue where you build your operations, you build your automations within the center of excellence. This will be your main governance body. And there's a whole nother discussion we can have around what type of center of excellences are most suitable for each organization, whether you're talking about hybrid, whether you're talking on on-prem, whether you're talking on where you want to keep all of these ones. Yeah, I think that kind of covers it. It's a very, very short introduction to kind of a wealth of opportunities you can unlock with, fully automated enterprise. But I think what we're trying to get here is that automation encompasses so much, and there's so many opportunities you can unlock through kind of building, managing, engaging, discovering your automations, that we're even moving away from just kind of normal RPA, the normal RPA discussion. We're talking about kind of full transformation program that we're looking at. Nitin, do you want to add something?
Awesome. No, I think that is great, Maria. I think obviously in a 30-minute session, we cannot tell everything about the platform, but I think, like you said, I think it's a lot of capabilities, when it comes to automating, full enterprise. So yeah, but I think that's the glimpse which we wanted to give everyone. Yep.
I have one question, maybe, in terms of the engage part, which is one of the parts which is really very interesting to me. I'm thinking about human-centric development and things like this. So you were speaking about the attended versus the unattended type of bots, and currently, what is the division between this in the type of use cases you currently have? Is it, you know,
Right.
mostly unattended or mostly attended?
Right.
And just would be
Awesome.
interested in that.
So I can give that answer, at least from a banking perspective. Now, when it comes to banks, if you see, unattended processes are typically, or unattended robots are typically used for, you know, or medium complexity processes, right? Which can be, which are really rule based, repetitive, and, you know, are not very complex. So in banks, if you see, a lot of unattended processes are already like taken care of, because banks are already matured when it comes to automation. So now the trend we are seeing is towards attended, because now banks wants to target the next set of complexity set of processes, medium to, you know, high. And that's where we are seeing a very, you know, high increase of usage of attended automation, whether it is, you know, for your front office processes, whether it is for contact center or customer servicing areas, whether it is for underwriting. So the theme which we are seeing is giving a digital assistant, attended automation. We also call it as a digital assistant because it is sitting on a human's machine. So giving a digital assistant to every user, and that's so that they can automate or work along with the robots to automate their more, you know, complex tasks. So that's where we are seeing the industry moving now.
Okay, very interesting. I let you guys continue. Just let's look at the note that they've sent to us. 15 minutes left for the workshop.
Yep. Alrighty. Maria, what are the stats from the poll question before we move to the journey? Yeah,
we asked you which technologies are the most important to you when it comes to automation, and the ones that come up the most are actually what Anke was touching upon. So capabilities to ensure seamless handoff between humans and automation workforce.
awesome.
And the second most voted was around machine learning and AI.
Awesome. Okay, so that is great, and we'll try to kind of touch upon both these aspects in the, you know, journeys. So in now, I think in the remaining whatever 12-14 minutes we have, we wanted to cover a couple of banking journeys with you. So the first journey here is on client onboarding, KYC, and we have taken an example of typical loans or a mortgage journey here, just to elaborate, and I have a good demo around that as well. But before that, the time for another question. So within your own banks, what are the major challenges which, you know, you are facing during your KYC or client onboarding process? So that question should be up on your screen. And while you're answering, let's move to this demo where I want to show you how UiPath kind of, you know, helps banks in automating their onboarding, client onboarding process. So let me quickly play this for you, and I know we have less time, so I'm going to fast forward a little bit. Now, if you see a typical, you know, mortgage application, right, how it really starts is you will receive, or a, you know, loan officer will typically receive emails with all the different documents, right, and then each document has to be opened up, classified, and then, you know, details have to be extracted from each of the documents, right? So now let's have a look at how UiPath does it. And again, like I said, just in the interest of time, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. So what you will see on your screen now, so this is what we call as a studio. Now this is where you will see, you know, automations are being developed. So right now what you see is first part, when you receive the KYC or the customer documents as part of the client onboarding journey, you have to classify the document, whether it is a passport, whether it is a W-2 document, whether it is a, you know, income proof document, right? So you have to do that classification. After the classification is done is when the extraction part comes, right? So if now I have classified that this is a passport, what information I need to extract from that passport kind of a document, right? So then the data extraction part comes. Now what you will see on your screen is a machine learning based extractor. As part of the workflow, we have used certain machine learning based extractors for documents like passport, W-2s, and, you know, in a while you will see how that really happens. I'm going to fast. So now what you see on your screen right now is our validation station. So the workflow is initiated. Now we were talking about the human robot engagement. Right now you can see here the bot has extracted all the information from the passport, and it is allowing the human to validate the information using this validation station. After human has validated, we have something called as data services, where all the data which has been extracted is stored here. And then the robot or the work automation workflow is going to move to the next set of document, which in this case will be a W2 document. Okay, so now you will see that a W2 document will be opened up. So here you see, now this is the second document in the package, in the loans package, or the loans KYC package, which is received, which might be a W2 document. Again, a human can validate what information has been extracted. So essentially what is happening is there's a confidence score around the data extraction. If this confidence score is lesser than a certain threshold, a human can validate. If it is higher than that threshold, then a human doesn't need to validate the information. And this is very, very important when it comes to typically handwritten documents, or those documents which might be, say, very, very unstructured in nature, right? So this is another example of a W2 document from which information is getting extracted. Again, the human can validate based on the confidence score here. So as you see here, once all the documents in the package are received by the robot opens each document, extracts, allows the human to validate the information which has been extracted, and then once all the information is there, it can pass all that information to a downstream application for onboarding the customer into your respective applications. So that's a quick kind of a demo which I wanted to give you around the document understanding capabilities, which works along with the humans, as part of the automation workflow. I'm going to pause this here now just to give you a little bit uh, some numbers around what is the typical benefit our customers have seen when it comes to automating the KYC or customer onboarding process. So this is one example from a bank who automated the individual customer KYC and customer onboarding process. Like I showed you, it included uh, receiving all the documents like identity documents, proof of income documents, performing all the so we are also able to integrate with your screening platforms. It might be World Check or LexisNexis, and either through an API or through a UI based automation, and then work through the onboarding journey. Typical time savings around 135,000 hours in a year, which and more importantly, we were able to reduce the onboarding time for this customer. So we were able to bring down the onboarding time from 30 minutes to 3 minutes. So that's the kind of saving which we were able to give as part of the KYC customer onboarding journey. With that, we will move to the next journey. But Maria, what were the stats? I just want to make sure I was able to cover some of the challenges.
Yeah, so we're looking, most people have answered. So the question, to give everyone again a reminder, what are the major challenges financial services firms face during a KYC and client onboarding? So most of our answers, around 40%, are around highly manual process across the value chain.
Right.
And for the second most voted, we're either looking at high onboarding time or increasing operational and compliance costs.
Absolutely. So as you see, I mean, as I think the biggest challenge obviously is the manual touch points, and which is what we want to reduce as part of the automation workflow by introducing automations from the very beginning when you are receiving the customer KYC documents, and then ensuring that there's a good automation workflow and integration available with your underlying core banking platforms, so that the robots can perform most of the tasks and humans are only able to validate or do exception handlings as and when they occur. And then I've already showed you the benefits in terms of reducing the onboarding cycle times as well. So those are the typical benefits which we have seen. In the interest of time, we'll move over to our second journey, which is around the customer servicing piece. And this is very important now because As you will see that there was a shift in terms of what servicing channels usually customers use in these COVID times. So I'm not going to give away the answer because that's the one next question. Which customer servicing channel in banks was used most in the recent times? So you should have that as part of your poll question. And I'm going to wait for Maria to tell me the answer of this question, because what I want to cover next is going to depend on the answers which we get. Maria, over to you whenever we have the responses.
Yes, it's a battle. I'm watching the online results as we're speaking. It's a battle between emails, online forms, and chatbots and contact centers.
Okay. Yes. So I think that is spot on and what I expected, because in the COVID times, obviously the usage of physical channels like branches decreased and people moved towards more virtual channels like contact centers and emails and chatbots and web forms. And we had a larger play in both these areas, in contact centers and emails. I know today we don't have enough time, but we'll share those links for both of these areas. In today's session, we'll at least try to cover one area, whichever gets the highest vote.
So I think we've settled down between a tie between emails and chatbots and contact centers.
Is it a tie? Oh boy. Okay. Okay, no worries. So let's just, in the interest of time. So again, guys, this is a good demo around email around customer servicing using emails. So I'll just give a 10-second background to this. So obviously there was a huge surge in the use of email as a channel in banks. And then the biggest challenge which banks faced is first classifying these emails into different categories, like which product, whether it is a complaint, it's a request, or which product that that email is relating to. So we have an ML based model which allows customers to classify those emails, and then once that classification is completed, you can introduce auto response framework to automatically respond to certain type of emails as well. So I'm going to play this quick demo. All right. How are we doing in terms of time, guys? NK or?
Yeah, we have only 2 minutes left, and this is a hard end as we will be automatically pushed into the main session. Awesome. So yeah, okay. Let's wrap up in the last 2 minutes.
Okay, so I think when it comes to customer servicing, like I said, we have been able to introduce solutions around both email as a channel and contact center as a channel. I'm not going to play this demo, but I think this is a low code capability which we have, which allows our banking customers to create agent consoles for contact center agents, so that they can take lesser time to respond to customer queries. So this is integrated at the back end with your underlying applications using UiPath robots, right? So again, we'll share some of these demos with you, and these are also available publicly for you to see. But I think I just wanted to leave you with this message. Whether it is customer servicing, client onboarding, I think automation is being leveraged by banks across customer journeys, and to automate end-to-end journey using the AI and RPA capabilities which we have as part of the platform. I'll take a pause there. Any questions, last minute questions, guys, before we get pushed out?
Well, nothing here. Very nice presentation, interesting and insightful.
Thank you so much.
And just one comment from me. So if you're interested in these types of kind of workshops, a bit longer and more in-depth workshops, as part of, if you want to take part in immersion lab events, we organize these with UiPath. So we can organize special workshops for you, in which you kind of show these demos like Nitin was showing, but actually we're showing them live. We couldn't do that because of like time constraints now. But we show them live and do deep dives into exact your particular areas of interest and kind of how we can create value together. So, and Dirk has already written something down on chat for a registration form if you're interested in talking a bit more about these.
Yeah, Maria, thanks for sharing that link. I think it will be definitely interesting, and also to especially dig more deeper into something that you are interested in. So I think that would be valuable for all the participants. Okay, I think there's 30 seconds and we'll be going back to the main session. So thank you guys for organizing this and making it so interactive with the questions. I think it was really wonderful.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for joining this breakout.
Thank you, Ankit, for hosting.
Thank you.
Joining the breakout, guys.
Help in a very quick, effective way to improve their customer experience. And one of the things that we really try to kind of focus on is we don't want to kind of help you build a very basic bot that only can, kind of give you a response in text. We're really looking at kind of helping enterprises create something that's smart, not just reactive, but also proactive, where it's able to kind of really understand the user, understand, the user's profile, and really kind of personalize the entire service for them. That's something that's extremely important to us. And we use a lot of integrations to actually enable us to do that. So one of the things that we're going to try and do throughout this session is give you a good idea of how exactly enterprise or a bot can help. Secondly, kind of show you actually how to build one, so that you can kind of at least get a good sense of, okay, what exactly does that journey look like? How easy or hard is it? And that's going to be where Martino from our team kind of steps in and shows you some of those parts. So as I mentioned during the first part, that, bots or conversational AI is not restricted to one channel or, just the website. Today, we're basically talking about conversational AI that's completely omni-channel. So it does not matter whether it's email, whether it's a phone call, whether it is WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, your website, your in-app. It really does not matter. As long as there's a conversation, what AI is able to do and what we at Enterprise Bot kind of provide as a service is to really allow you to understand that unstructured data to really then basically respond to it in the right way. And specifically in banking, there are three major areas that you can utilize a bot for. One is on the product selection, where basically, for example, let's say you have an investment, you have multiple different types of investment vehicles. You can really kind of help guide the user to select, okay, what exactly is the right product or investment for him based on his age, based on his risk assessment, based on his family profile. All of those different pieces can actually be clubbed in, and you can kind of, go from there. So of course, robo advisory is one of the things that comes into mind, but you don't need it to even be that sophisticated. Sometimes it could just basically be something more basic, but you can go as far as robo advisory, for example. The second part is on the onboarding. So this is something that we hear a lot from financial service companies, where they're really looking for, okay, we've got these customers, but there are a lot of compliances that we need to do. Every quarter, we need to make sure that we follow up for filling these forms, getting X or Y. So we really kind of help build or give you those processes to really automate that through our enterprise bot platform. And the third part is the post-sale support, which is the one I think you're the most, kind of familiar with, which is kind of, okay, I need to change my address, or hey, can you tell me what exactly is the value of my investments today, or anything in between, right? So these are three major areas that we've seen in financial services where, there's a lot of, let's say, need, or where basically financial services, where enterprise bot can really add value. Another question that we get asked very often, and guys, please feel free to jump in, ask questions. I have absolutely no problem to make this as interactive as possible. So one of the areas that we always get asked is, how do we get started? So, we've got this mandate that, hey, we need to implement AI, or hey, we really want to do something with bots, but we're not really sure what's the right use case, or how do we want to really get started? And, this is the old way, that you do the use case discovery. It normally takes 1 to 3 months. Then you go towards creating the NLP, that can basically start with creating the right team, putting 3 to 4 FTEs, building the right process flows and responses first on, a Visio, or, some kind of draw.io, or any of those kind of tools. And then basically after that's mapped out, then you try and go into the code and actually build that out. And then after that, you go into, okay, now that we understand the processes, now we need to go into the integrations. So this entire process used to be extremely cumbersome, extremely long. And that's one of the areas that we, at least at Enterprise Bot, found that we could really create a big disruption in. And that's why what we try to do is really kind of simplify that entire bot lifecycle for you. So right from the workshop with the process model canvas, which I'm just going to show you, to very easy, ready-to-use data sets that allow you to go, faster, to no-code UI for process flow, and very easily making those integrations. So, we really try to see that, okay, what does your life cycle look like? And that's something that I'm going to show you throughout this workshop, that, how do we actually solve each of these pieces, and how you, without as much experience in this particular field, can actually become a professional and can actually really pick this up, or at least pitch it, let's say, to your C-level, or pitch it to the board about what exactly does it really mean to provide this kind of technology, and what are the advantages of it. So starting with the use case discovery. So on the use case discovery, what we've done is we've tried to kind of put the whole frame in one kind of canvas. I don't know if you're familiar with the business model canvas. This is something similar, which we call the chatbot canvas by Enterprise Bot. But what we've tried to do is kind of bring in all the different pieces that you're going to need to make sure that you are able to actually implement something in the right way. And it can be with something that is as basic as, okay, what's the problem that we're trying to solve? But it needs to be as detailed as, okay, what's the personality? Like, do we want to make it friendly? Or no, actually, if we make it too friendly and it's a compliance bot, then people will start asking the wrong questions, and then you're not going to get the most out of that entire kind of interface. So there are multiple different pieces that you can kind of really plug in here. Another good thing about this canvas, and we've used this with workshops, in workshops with Fortune 500 companies, we've used this with other startups. We've used this really to kind of help enterprises understand that, hey, this is not one person in the organization that's going to actually, build this out. It really needs to make sure that you bring in IT, you bring in the right person from the business to make sure that this is successful, so that you can really define, okay, what does the project look like? Who exactly are the right people that you need to add in this project? So normally, again, everything we're going to show you, normally we cover in about a 3.5-hour workshop. So it's going to be really condensed, and I'm going to go slightly fast. But that's just because I want to try and at least give you a good holistic perspective, and then we can deep dive. And as I mentioned, please feel free to kind of ask questions anywhere in between. And, as I mentioned, it's really important that you kind of have that holistic perspective. You need a team. You do not need to create another silo, because then I can already assure you that it's not going to be as successful, the project. And to make sure that you're able to actually connect all these processes and you're able to actually connect all these different pieces, that's where we really believe we add value. Because what we do is not just the bot or the AI or the natural language processing part, but we also provide you the process automation engine, which allows you to then basically easily connect with, for example, let's say you have an RPA like UiPath or Blue Prism. You're able to actually connect the NLP or AI into the complete process automation through our no-code application. Another thing, if you are interested, I'm happy to share after this workshop, is we have a lot of content around how do you create the ROI calculations, how do you understand what exactly is the amount of automation that's taking place, and how do you leverage all of that to actually kind of decide whether this project, makes sense, what's the break-even time, what's the ROI. I can tell you from our experience, anything that has over approximately 100,000 in terms of volume on an annual basis is a good, let's say, use case to kind of automate, or a good, let's say, place to get started in general. But as I mentioned, what we really want to try and show you is what we've really been focused on, which is, hey, how can you make it extremely easy to A, understand what are the right use cases, but also B, how can you actually build one that is extremely powerful, extremely accurate, because the last thing you want, and just a perspective over there, on average, 86% of bots fail. There's a Pegasystems survey out that basically states this. What we've tried to do is really give you all those different pieces that I mentioned to really make sure that, as most of our customers, we basically have only a 9% failure rate from pilot to go live. And that's because we're kind of giving you that ability to kind of get all those building blocks together that you can just kind of take forward from there. What I'm going to do now is actually hand over, as I mentioned, to Martina, who can kind of show you quickly how exactly this really works, how, let's say, easy, but at the same time sophisticated the entire system is, and what exactly you can do with it. So Martina, please share your screen. I'm just going to stop mine.
Yeah, on it. Let me know when you can see it.
Yeah, I can.
Working now, right? So what you can see here is, exactly as Pranay was mentioning, this is kind of our interface, how we build our bots. And I'll just go through this very quickly. Of course, there's much more that could be said here, but I'll just try to keep it quick. So what you see here exactly is the chatbot admin interface. On the left side over here, you have what's called the intents that this bot covers. So as we mentioned before, you go through this canvassing process. You now know what your bot needs to cover, what types of questions it needs to answer. That list of types of questions is exactly these intents, right? So you can see, for example, over here, I have a bot that can cover a few banking use cases, your cards overview, block card, and so on. And now for each of these, if I go now over here on the right side, sorry, I have to feed the bot with a number of different ways in which this question can be asked. So these are what's called the triggers. Over here, you can see for this case, for example, cards overview. So question is, the type of question is like, what types of cards do you have? What credit cards do you offer? I have over here about 180, 170 triggers. So different ways in which a question can be asked. And what's important here is that this is something that this interface lets you train and build very simply. So if I want to add one more type of question, I can just type it in like this. But we also have pre-trained data set, pre-trained intents that I'll show you in a second that you can just leverage to really cut down that time to get the project started from those several months to a few weeks, thanks to these kind of pre-existing knowledge. And then just to kind of complete the theoretical part about how this works, when you have this number of triggers set up, these ways in which a user could ask this question, the AI then trains itself based on this. It builds its algorithm. It builds what's called word vectors, which essentially allows it to receive a question from the user and understand it and accurately assign it to the right intent, not just based on certain keywords that it contains, not just doing just a search for those keywords, but really looking at the sentence in its entirety, looking at each word not just as the word, but as the word in its context. That's basically what word vectors are, and that's when then, yeah, go ahead.
just to kind of add a point over there, and this is extremely important to understand because we see a lot of confusion, when people really kind of start using bots. And the first thing they see this and say is, oh, okay, so I need to put in every example that basically is possible to kind of make sure that this works. And the answer to that is no, because it is absolutely impossible for you to put in every different variation. The idea always with AI is you give the computer, or you basically give the AI some amount of training data, and that can be as little as, let's say, 20 examples, and in this case it's more than 175. The more data you basically give to the AI, the better it creates it, the better it gets at creating its own AI model, which then really helps it understand. So it's really semantically based. So, for example, let's say you look at a very simple, sentence, book me a ship versus ship me a book. You have exactly the same words, but a completely different meaning. And that's where AI really basically uses its semantic analysis to understand what is the real user request and how can it take that forward.
Exactly. And then again, as Pranay was mentioning over here, you have a certain amount, a certain set here. We have quite a few, but the idea is precisely that the AI will be able to receive the kind of 176th version of this question that it has never seen before and still understand it with high accuracy. And of course, the more of these versions you feed it, the better it will be. And the crucial point here is that this is true with AI in general, right? You will have to do this no matter what the platform is. We offer you this pre-trained, pre-existing knowledge, and that's where you can kind of go up here and access kind of a sort of a marketplace of all the pre-existing intents, all the pre-existing knowledge that we have been building and collecting over time based on our past experiences. So for example, you can go here, click on banking, and you can see I can scroll down. I have quite a few different types of questions that I could ask the bot to be able to answer. So if I just open one of these, you can see for each and every single one of them, we have gone through the trouble of adding all of these triggers so that you don't have to do it. All you have to do is just go here, click, pick and choose which of these you would like your bot to be able to answer. Click on proceed, proceed again. And as you can see here, I have just in a few clicks added these. Now, of course, what I need to do is go down here and define what I want the answers to be, and we'll get to that in a second. But that's as easy as it is to really improve and increase the scope of your bot.
Any questions till now? Cool.
Right. So as I was mentioning, one thing is to make sure that the bot understands kind of the linguistic input of the users, but we also want to give an output. One version of that you can very simply define over here is just give some sort of simple answer, kind of FAQ style. You can put in, of course, different types of UI. This is highly customizable, but now we're talking about UI. So just to quickly give you a sense of what this looks like as well. Now here we have kind of our default chat interface. This could, of course, be implemented on your website, on an app. All of that is possible. We can even use third-party interfaces, but I can just ask that question we're looking at before, something like, what cards do you offer? And I'll get this kind of carousel of products. Again, here I could then build my recommendation engine and so on. However, where it becomes interesting and where the added value really comes in for these chatbots is not just if I can give this type of static answer where, yes, it's useful as one more channel through which users can find out about these things. But the chatbot, in order to be really useful for the user, needs to be able to somehow give them a personalized answer that really specifically applies for them. Let's now move, for example, to the other use case we touched upon before. So here we kind of have a sales perspective or marketing. If I have another type of question that I'm sure banking customers will have asked hundreds of times, hey, I lost my card. I need to block it, right? This is something that will come in over and over and needs to be handled fast. If I lose my card at 11 p.m. at night, I just need this to be done quickly. And if the phone number is occupied or there are no people there, that's of course a problem. Now you have here your input understanding, your natural language processing through the triggers. And then what you see down here, what's interesting is you don't have a specific fixed reply, but you have a connection to a flow. And this is something that we have also built that I will show you in a second. It's our flow builder over here called Blitzico. All of this, everything I've shown you so far, they're all products that have developed. And so when that intent is triggered, when the customer comes in and asks, hey, I lost my credit card, the bot starts kind of a flow. It starts a process where it guides the user through the process of really completely automating this. And at the end of the process, the card will be blocked. So you can see here, for example, I can very simply define conversational nodes where the bot will ask something and receive an answer from the user. In this case, for example, of course, the first thing I want to do is authenticate. So I'm asking the name and the date of birth over here. And then once I do that, of course, I want to check if this user is actually who they say they are. I want to authenticate. That's where I can make an API call to my user database. This could very easily be if you had an RPA already in place. We were hearing about UiPath before, of course. I could just drop in the UiPath node and kind of connect it like that. But for now, we're just going to go with this. And of course, then you can check. Again, very simple, very intuitive, very visual as well. You can just say, okay, after I made this call to the database, I will receive the information back of, yes, this user does indeed exist, or the user does not exist. The name and the date of birth don't match, for example. And I can just say, okay, if yes, then I go up. If no, then I go down. And I continue with my flow very simply. So in this case, for example, if I were to go back here and say something like, I lost my credit card, you can see exactly what the bot is asking me now is precisely what I had defined over here. And so now let's just very quickly go through this flow. I'll give my name, I'll give my date of birth, and the chatbot will, as I said, make that API call, check. Now the flow continues with an OTP, so you kind of have also a sense of that that omni-channel dimension that Pranay was mentioning before, right? So not only do I go through chat, I also can use email. That would be a completely separate discussion we could have. I'll just give my OTP here. And now what's also interesting is this does not just simplify the agent's life, right? The agent now doesn't have to spend time helping the user out here. The user is also the user's life is also simplified because they get this information from the bot. And again, this comes from the database, right? The bot will go into the database and get this information. What I'd like to show now is another live demo of the voice product, because that's also very interesting, but maybe I'll stop for a second if there are any questions so far.
Yes, please go ahead. Don't be shy. I know that you guys are shy when you're sitting in front of a screen, but we're here to take your questions. Emra, Mirat, Nihar, Sharkan, please don't hesitate. You can raise the hand and then we let you voice. Otherwise, we keep going with the session. 3 seconds, 3, 2, 1. Please, Martino.
All right, perfect. Then, yeah, as I mentioned, I would like to show you the kind of the voice demo. The principle is exactly the same. It's all defined with this interface in exactly the same way. You just need your triggers, you need your replies, but the channel is now a different one. Of course, I cannot show you this on the screen because I will be doing it through my phone. So I'll just put my phone on speaker and you kind of hear the bot talking to me. Of course, then I can't really talk through it, but that's fine. And what I'll also do is over here, the idea here again is we're integrating with a database. Now this is a mock-up of a database, it's just a table, but you kind of see as well how the bot is really reading data from here and then also updating in real time. So let's go.
Welcome to Enterprise Bank's chat service. My name is Mike. How can I help you?
I'd like to change my address, please.
For security reasons, I have to ask you a few questions. What is your name?
Martino Oleggini.
What is your date of birth?
February 15th, 1992.
Welcome, Martino. Martino. What is your new address?
515 Flower Street in LA.
Excellent. We have entered this change. Can I help you with anything else?
Can you check my expenses for last month?
In total, you have spent 566 Swiss francs and 65 Rappen last month. Would you like a breakdown of all your expenses?
Yes, please.
The following are your expenses in detail. Food, 152 Swiss francs and 25 Rappen. Household expenses, 47 Swiss francs and 50 Rappen. Travel, 12 Swiss francs. Board games, 354 Swiss francs and 90 Rappen.
Okay, that's probably too many board games.
Got it. Let's set a budget for your expenses on board games. What should the monthly limit be?
Let's say 100 francs.
Perfect. I have set a limit of 100 Swiss francs for your monthly expenses on board games, and I will send you an alert to make sure you don't overspend.
And there you go. That's kind of the idea there. You saw the bot reading and posting information in real time.
So Nihar, I saw that you put up a question about data vulnerability. Could you expand on that? Like, what's the main point over there in terms of what would you like to check? Or are you talking about if a breach has already happened, how do we know? Or how do we try and keep that safe?
Yeah, you can voice it. You can voice your question, please.
So I'm just going to try and take my best shot at it based on what I understand. In terms of how do we check for a data breach, there are 3 or 4 things that we've kind of put into place, which includes, for example, any kind of access to our systems from an unknown IP. So firstly, like it's completely blocked, but at the same time, the number of times something like that is tried, we also get notifications about that. Additionally, based on the firewalls, we also have certain amount of throttling to better understand if there is kind of any attack that is tried. Additionally, we basically run tests on the entire system to try and verify whether all the data that is actually there is conforming with the setup that needs to be there. Again, to be honest, on the security portion, I would say our head of security would be able to tell you a lot more about that, but this is a very quick overview of that.
Yeah, please go ahead, Martino.
Yeah, just to
sorry, go
very
ahead.
quickly just complete what the points I wanted to touch upon. Of course, we've talked about understanding the user, giving answers. Of course, one big point whenever you're talking about AI is not only training it at first, right? But you have to maintain it. You have to keep training it and improve it. And once again, what the idea here is that this should be done by someone that has the business knowledge, that understands what the right answers for the questions should be, not by someone with the technical knowledge. So the idea here is that we've built this interface to really allow anyone to make this change and to make this training and maintenance. So if I go over here to my training page, you can see the list of all the chats that the bot has had with the users. And so I, as the business user, as the agent, as the customer support agent, can go through now, read, see what the answer was given by the bot. And if at any point that was incorrect, I could kind of reassign it here, just click on something else. I won't do it now, of course, it was correct. But the idea is, yeah, if I do this, then next time this question comes in, the bot will be better at understanding it. And finally, just the final point I want to put on the table, of course, the bot, there are topics that the bot won't be able to answer. There are topics that are too complicated or maybe even too sensitive for the bot to answer. So we just don't want the bot to answer those things. Or if I go back to my example I had before, it's one thing to block the credit card, but maybe the process of kind of recovering that or maybe ordering a new credit card is something I'd rather hand over to an agent. And that's kind of where our hybrid approach comes in, where the chatbot takes it until it can, and then when it can't or when it shouldn't, hands it over to an agent. And that's where you can see here if I click over here, it says I will now transfer you to an agent. And this is kind of the last interface I will very quickly show you, where the agent will be logged in. They will see the conversation. They will be able to click, assign themselves to it. But now I de-assign myself as well, and just start chatting in a matter of seconds. The user gets an answer, gets a contact with an agent, with a human in a matter of seconds, and very seamlessly.
Very good. We have a final. Sorry, you wanted to add something, Pranay?
No, I was just going to take the last question that I saw.
Alex, please, if you don't mind voicing the question. Alex Fowler.
Sure. I've got a question. I saw that you demonstrated voice bots as well as text-based bots. What mixture and uptake are you seeing between the usage in these different channels?
So I would say till last year, it was less than 2% in terms of voice, but we're seeing it really pick up very quickly. And we expect that it should be approximately 30 to 40% in the next 2 years. So we expect it to rise extremely sharply because voice is definitely one of the major interfaces that we're going to see automated over the next couple of years. But right now, it's much, much slower historically.
Wow, that's fascinating to know that there's going to be such an uptake on voice. Thanks.
Very good. Any final words, Pranay and Martino, before we take you back to the main hall?
I just wanted to say, if you are interested in kind of using the system or trying out and seeing how exactly you can build a bot for yourself or for your enterprise, feel free to reach out. Or if you want any of the ROI calculators or any of the material, feel absolutely free to reach out. More than happy to share those.
Very good. We are going to wrap up we're going to bring you back to the main hall in about 1 minute and a half. Let me play the music and then I'll bring you back all. Okay. Anything you would like to add, Danny?
Thank you so much, Anthony. So it was extremely interesting experience for me and discussion that we had that we bring in here. And I think there's a lot more to come, right? But the chatbot thing is one thing. So, but there are so many processes that can be completely automated over time and can make our lives much more convenient, right? So, and I'm looking forward in the next years that more to come. Many things are out there already. So what I've seen globally in several fintech fairs, right? So, and it's interesting things, and I'm extremely proud that to work with all of you in this context.
Thank you, Danny. Danny, so guys, we are bringing you back in 30 seconds, and I will for the main closing words. Okay. See you in the main hall in about 30 seconds. Okay.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Talk to you. Thank you.
It's the world of Zoom meeting.
Oh, here we go now. Here we go. Gentlemen and ladies, it's been an honor to have you with us today for our very first episode of the AI Spotlight Series. Any final words by our panelists? Please, Pranay, let's start with you.
No, just wanted to say thank you. It was an absolute pleasure speaking to all of you and look forward to continuing the conversation.
Wonderful. Nitin, please back over to you.
Thank you. And again, I'll actually thank all the participants who've joined us and who were so responsive in our breakout session. Guys, I know this was very short, but we would definitely like to do and share more with you. Feel free to reach out to me, Maria, Dirk, who's here, and I think Dirk has already shared a link. Feel free to pass on the message to us. We'll be happy to connect.
Beautiful. Maria, over to you. Any final words?
I just wanted to thank everyone for joining and thank you and the whole of LHoFT team for hosting us and for inviting us. And yeah, we look forward to reconnecting with everyone in the future to do more deep dives on the art of the possible.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Danny, over to you. Any final words?
Well, thanks to the teams for the breakout rooms, right? So it was extremely interesting. So I was going into both and to see and watch what you guys are doing, right? Great stuff, great work. Go ahead like that, right? And I will spread the word in Switzerland and in Europe, right? So involved also in the European Association of Associations of Credit Management over here. So, and if companies come into play and asking, hey, is this stuff existing? So chatbots, I will now know and know faces where to go to, right? and that will help many companies in the future.
Very good. Also, very special thanks to Anke Joubert for the moderation today. Anke, over to you. Any last words?
Yeah, so thank you very much, Anthony, for organizing this and also for taking the initiative to start this AI Spotlight Series. I think it's really a great platform to zoom into different industries, and personally, I learned a lot today. So I hope we will keep in contact, keep the connections, and have many more of these sessions in the future.
Very good. How can the audience reach out to you, Anke?
Yes, so they can connect on LinkedIn, or I can also share my email address with you to share out afterwards. So then they can definitely reach out and get into contact with Deloitte and all the AI products that we also offer.
Thank you to all of you. So on